Good afternoon and welcome to our 1 o'clock session at our Oregon Conference Camp Meeting 2021. We are glad that each of you are here with us, whether you're in the Oregon Conference or somewhere around the world. We are super happy that you are here with us this afternoon. We are going to be talking about what it means to be a digital evangelist today. What is a digital evangelist? Well, briefly, a digital evangelist is someone who engages in meaningful conversations with people in their friend network via a social media platform or any kind of digital means. So today we have Tim Taylor, who will be presenting to us what it means to be a digital evangelist. He is the Associate Director for Outreach Ministries Department here in the Oregon Conference, and we're so grateful that he has spent some time in developing and learning more about what it means to be a digital evangelist. So as we get ready to listen to what he has to share with us, let's begin with prayer. Father in heaven, thank you that we have so many different ways in which to share your love with those around us. And as we talk about how we can effectively do this online, especially in this time that we're living in right now, we just ask that you would continue to guide and direct us and provide ideas and opportunities for us to share your love with those in our social networks. Thank you for this, and we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. Here's Tim Taylor, how to be a digital evangelist.
Hello, Oregon Conference family. My name is Tim Taylor, Associate Director for the Outreach Ministries Department. I have a question for you. Did you know that you can do evangelism simply using technology? Did you know that there was even such a thing as a digital evangelist? A digital evangelist is an individual who shares life-transforming content with their friendship networks. They engage in meaningful conversations with secular or unchurched individuals through an online platform. We've actually created a booklet called How to Be a Digital Evangelist that I'll be diving into so we can look at it together. We do have physical copies of this booklet if you would like some for you or for your church, and you can also download a digital copy of the booklet at maxharvestchurch.com/digital evangelist. The first section of this book is about 7 benefits of digital evangelism. I'd like to share them with you because I believe that digital evangelism opens new horizons for sharing the good news of the gospel. The first benefit of digital evangelism is quality content. Through digital evangelism, churches are able to feature speakers who may not be available to present in person at their church due to maybe finances or budget or availability. And we've launched a platform called Max Life Events that focuses on helping people to live their lives with greater intentionality. We engage with subject matter experts who are skilled at connecting with a secular audience. Content is focused on the 8 domains of intentional living, which is health, vocation, family, intellectual, financial, emotional, relational, and perhaps our favorite, spiritual. You can learn more about these 8 domains by visiting our website, maxlifeevents.com. Back in February of this year, we hosted a series with Paul Conniff called Finding Hope in the Pain, and it was just a big blessing where Paul shared a lot about how we can learn to take our pain to the cross and find healing in Jesus. And this is just one example of the many different online series that we've been offering and plan to offer in the future. The second benefit of digital evangelism that I want to share with you is being able to take advantage of your social network. Any method of evangelism is most effective when it taps into natural friendship networks. In fact, did you know that statistics indicate that more than 80% of individuals who join the church do so based on family or friend relationships? Well, online evangelism is no different. And so social platforms like Facebook can provide easy access to invite family and friends to engage with an online series. The third benefit of digital evangelism that I'd like to share with you is that it is an efficient method of reaching people. If you look at the investment for an in-person evangelistic series that we usually do in a church or a venue, it's a significant investment, isn't it? You have, the commute, the setup, the takedown, volunteer support, the list could go on and on. Well, digital evangelism also involves a time commitment, but it can happen from the comfort of your home. You can participate in the series online while you're in your pajamas or maybe even eating your favorite snack. And sharing the online content is as simple as clicking a button. The fourth benefit that I want to share with you is that digital evangelism allows for interactive engagement. Digital evangelism provides an opportunity for every person watching to get involved. We found that the most effective way to build community is audience engagement, and this happens right in the chat. As participants interact with each other, they build relationships and trust is established. We found vulnerability begins to take place naturally and opens the door to meaningful conversations. Here are some examples of the series I shared with you a moment ago with Paul Conniff called Finding Hope in the Pain. And here Larissa shares, how do you forgive yourself after you have not only been abused, but have also become an abuser and hurt others? You can see the vulnerability taking place here. Sandra says, alone, abused as a child, divorced, narcissistic partner, parents argued. Why must I deal with it all? Jameis says, how do I walk away from unsupportive family members? Heather says, how do I heal my little girl inside of me? And Ruth asks, how do I find purpose in my life? These are some examples of the kind of vulnerability that we see happening right in the chat during a live presentation. And it creates great opportunities for us to connect with people in meaningful ways. The fifth benefit of digital evangelism I want to share with you is that it is invitation friendly. Well, what does that mean? You know, it can feel intimidating to approach an unchurched person, right, and invite them to attend a series of meetings at a church or a venue that they've never been to before. But on social media platforms, it's common and even expected that people will post things that they're passionate about. And so for you, it's way easier to invite people within your sphere of influence, and for the seeker, being able to access content from the privacy of their own home helps to remove barriers for them as well. So it's easier for you, and it's easier for those you're inviting. A win-win, right? The sixth benefit that I would like to share with you is that it allows you to have an extensive impact. Digital evangelism provides an unprecedented local and global opportunity. Unlike an in-person series, access to an online series is not geographically limited or time-bound. So when you engage in digital evangelism, you never know how far that's going to go and how many people you will reach. So when you share one of our posts, that enables that content to be distributed anywhere in the world at no cost. And the live presentation represents only a portion of the audience that will ultimately be reached. We look at not just those who tune in to watch live, but also those that watch afterwards. And we found that 75% of the views, or more even, can happen after the live event is over. And when a series is finished, we often archive it and make it available 24/7 on our website at maxlifeevents.com. So again, you never know just how far the reach is with digital evangelism. And that's exciting. The seventh benefit that I want to share with you is that digital evangelism adds drips into other people's spiritual bucket. Well, what does that mean, you might be wondering? Well, the journey to baptism can be described as adding drips to someone's spiritual bucket. Digital evangelism is one way to intentionally do this. Every person is at a different place in their journey. For some, the bucket will overflow and a decision for baptism will be made. And so the idea here is that digital evangelism is a great way to plant seeds. It's a great way to grow seeds. And for many, when they're ready, a decision will be made. The photo on the right, for example, here that you see is of a young man along with his school chaplain, his father, and the evangelist. These individuals and many other, I'm sure, contributed to his decision for baptism. So digital evangelism allows you to play an important role in the spiritual journey of other people. So these are the 7 benefits to digital evangelism. Now I'd like to share with you 7 basic skills or steps that you can take to begin your journey as a digital evangelist. The first step that you can take is focused prayer. At Max Life Events, we recognize that God's power changes lives. We need to be in communication with God through prayer. And so here are some ways that you can partner with us in doing just that. Number 1, you can pray during the 10-minute countdown that we have leading up to the presentation going live. Number 2, you can pray that when appeals are made by the speaker, that people will respond to those appeals. And that's so important. Number 3, you can offer to pray for those who share a personal need in the comments. Just like I shared with you earlier, you can see that there are a lot of vulnerable needs and ideas that are shared in the comments. And so you can offer to pray for those individuals, and that will be very meaningful for them and for you too. The second step that you can take is to join our community. You can do this in the following ways. Number one, you can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/MaxLifeEvents. Number two, you can join our community by registering for the event, and this will create reminder notifications for you. Number three, you can invite others to like the page by sharing the link as well. A third step that you can take is to simply show up. We naturally become passionate about what we're invested in personally. And when consistently participating in a series, not only will you become excited about the content, but you will also be able to support seekers on their journey as well. This is why it's essential to do the following. Number one, commit to watch every live broadcast. Number two, arrive online early. Number three, be fully present. So in other words, we don't just want you to invite other people to be engaged, we want you to be engaged as well. And we found this to be super important, especially as we're in contact with different leads, for them to know that you're also engaged in the process too is meaningful for them as they connect with you as a digital evangelist. A fourth step that you can take is to personally invite others. It is possible in the digital space to add a personal touch to your invitation. You can invite family and friends by sending a link in the following ways. Number one, you can share event promos found on the Max Life Events Facebook page to your personal social media pages. Number two, you can send a link of the event promotional material through Facebook Messenger with a personal note. And Facebook is nice because it allows you to add that personal message along with it, but it still lets it be easy for you and convenient for you to share it with other people. Number three, send a link of your favorite promotional content via a text message. So maybe as you look at our Facebook page and you see different videos or different advertisements for online series coming through, you can find your favorites and send that even as a text message to people that you're reaching out to. A fifth step that you can take is to keep inviting other people. Once a live session is finished, the content remains on the Max Life Events Facebook page until the series is completed. So you can encourage your family and friends to, number one, watch the series even after the first night. It's not too late still. Number two, you can catch up with previous sessions. Number three, watch the completed archive series at our website, maxlifeevents.com. A sixth step that you can take is to press that share button. When Max Life Events goes live, there is something simple you can do that will grow the audience, and it's completely free. You can complete this step in just 2 seconds. Number one, during the 10-minute countdown, press the share button below the video. In the pop-up window, click Share Now, and this will place the video on your personal timeline. A seventh step that you can take is to comment. If there's one quality of a digital evangelist that is a game changer, this is it. Only people who consistently comment during the live presentations become known to the viewers. Consider the following opportunities. Number one, you can respond to requests for engagement by the speaker or the hosts. So those who are leading out in the program will often ask questions and give opportunities for engagement, and you can respond to those opportunities. Number two, you can directly affirm other people's comments in the chat by a written response or a reaction emoji. Number three, you can remember personal concerns shared in a previous session and follow up on them. So maybe as you're tuning in from one presentation to the next, you might notice a need that's shared, and during the following presentation or whenever you have the opportunity, you can follow up with that individual and ask them, how are things going with the situation that you shared? So those are 7 basic steps that you can take as you begin your journey as a digital evangelist. Next, I want to share with you 7 additional advanced steps that will allow you to take your digital evangelism to the next level. The first advanced step that you can take is to create a digital evangelism team. We have found that highly effective churches make digital evangelism an ongoing priority. This can be accomplished by forming a digital evangelism team as an official ministry of your local church. Team members, for example, identify themselves to interests as local Max Life Events representatives. They also follow through with digital interests within the local church territory. Number 3, exemplify the basic and boost or advanced skills outlined in this presentation and in the booklet. A second advanced step that you can take is collaborative follow-up. Moving relationships from the digital platform to the real world is an important step in the evangelism process. This can be accomplished in the following ways. Number one, identify a felt need of an interest in your territory and create an intentional plan to meet it. This can look like offering ongoing in-person Bible studies or ensuring that 3 or 4 relevant connection points exist within your local church. The idea here is that we want to get people connected, not just online, but offline as well. And so we want to encourage you to be thinking about that transition as you engage with digital evangelism. A third advanced step that you can take is to create community. Expanding friendship and ministry opportunities for interests is essential to their journey towards feeling a sense of belonging. You might consider implementing the following best practices. Number one, increase fellowship opportunities at your church or in your community. Number two, strategically plan for in-home hospitality. Number three, find creative ways to get interests involved in local church ministry right away, even prior to baptism. A fourth advanced step that you can take is to host a viewing social. An online series is an opportunity for local church interests to make a decision. An option to facilitate this is to offer a small group viewing social at the church or in a home facilitated by your digital evangelism team. This can be done by following these steps. Number one, identify interests to invite to the viewing social. Number two, provide refreshments to enhance relationship building. I mean, who doesn't like food, right? And number three, facilitate the ability for those without devices to interact online. So we have one church that comes to mind in particular that does very well at this. They have these social gatherings, and not everybody always has a device to connect with. And so they have 1 or 2 leaders that will put the comments in the chat on behalf of everybody who's present. A fifth advanced step that you can take is to keep your conversations seeker-friendly. Well, what does that mean? The goal of Max Life events is to reach secular people, and it's important that we can remember that. So in order to remove barriers, communication adjustments are needed. So keep the following guidelines in mind, for example. Number one, avoid Adventist lingo like Happy Sabbath or Spirit of Prophecy. Number two, steer clear of contentious conversations and getting ahead of the topic. Number three, allow the Max Life Events team to handle comments that might be tricky from individuals posting, whether it's maybe indicating the potential for harm to themselves or others, or maybe commenting in a difficult manner. Let our team handle some of those challenges. A sixth advanced step that you can take is to multiply your impact. I want you to imagine a church where the majority of the members are skilled digital evangelists. Now multiply that across many churches. The global impact of such a movement is yet to be seen. The following steps outline what your local church can do to increase your digital footprint. Number one, each digital evangelism team member identifies someone that they can train for the next online series. Number two, commit to engage in at least one online series per year. We try to offer a few different options every year, and so we want to encourage you to commit to engage in at least one per year. Number three, inspire other churches to get involved in digital evangelism. A seventh advanced step that you can take is to become certified. Digital evangelists that demonstrate the skills outlined in this presentation and in the booklet qualify to receive personalized and signed certificate of recognition. And here are the steps to qualify. Number one, consistently engage in all of the basic and boost or advanced skills for a minimum of 9 online sessions. Number two, identify a person that you will mentor for the next online series. And then number three, apply for certification at our website, maxharvestchurch.com/digital evangelist. Now that I've shared with you these 7 advanced steps, I thought you might like to know some of the techniques that we use behind the scenes to make your efforts more effective. The first technique that I'd like to share with you is capturing interests in innovative ways. We found that the more traditional approach maybe of requiring registration information up front online can be a barrier to the very people that we're trying to reach. We want to make it easy for people to engage. And so we have determined that removing this barrier is the most effective way to reach a secular audience. What other innovative ways can viewers be identified instead, you might be wondering? Well, we have identified a number. Some of the options that we use are, optional pre-registration through a dedicated landing page, event reminders, giveaways, roll calls, online decision cards, prayer requests, and coaching conversations. All of these different approaches allow us to identify individuals who are spiritually interested without requiring them to register ahead of time. A second technique that we use behind the scenes is utilizing different marketing strategies. Max Life Events, we provide a variety of different marketing materials such as promotional videos, social media posts, landing pages, a Facebook event page, and the list goes on. And personally sharing this type of content can be done at no cost to you or your church and can be done from the comfort of your home. Paid advertising is also an option and can target large geographic areas using keywords to intentionally reach a secular audience. Boosting sessions early in the series through advertisement is another method of growing the audience. A third behind-the-scenes technique that we use is building rapport. We found that building a relationship between the speaker and the audience is essential to establishing trust. Viewers are more likely to respond to a speaker if they've developed a connection with them. And so at Max Life Events, our goal is to introduce the audience to the speaker before a reaping series even begins. And this is accomplished through discovery series and mini documentaries. To see examples, again, you can visit our website at maxlifeevents.com. A fourth technique that we use is featuring digital hosts. At Max Life Events, we strategically involve local pastors and leaders so that they become familiar to the online audience. At the beginning of every live session, a local church pastor is introduced as a digital host. They serve as a chaplain, if you will, in the chat during the live session, responding to any needs that may arise. In some cases, pastors also serve as co-hosts, as guests during the welcome, as a pre-recorded video feature, or as part of an interview or testimony segment. This engagement effectively builds bridges for contact in their local context as local Max Life Events representatives become familiar faces. So here's an example of some engagement that takes place. Here Jan shares, I lost a child of 2 years old suddenly in 1991. And then one of our pastors shares, you're not alone, Jan. Our children are always in our hearts. And Dana also shares, I tried to commit suicide last year. Ruth shares, trying to find meaning after the death of my son. And Rebecca shares, I feel very disconnected. And you can see our pastors are joining here in response to these individuals, giving them support that they need. And you don't have to be a pastor to give online support to people. And so we encourage these types of connections. And the idea here is that these local pastors and local leaders, like yourself perhaps, become familiar faces to these individuals. And that makes the transition from online to offline connection more seamless. A fifth behind-the-scenes technique that we use is a text message integration. Research indicates that text messaging is the most effective way to send a message. Remarkably, 98% of text messages are opened, and 85% of individuals prefer this communication method. Max Life Events has integrated a texting platform into our system to communicate with our growing interest list. Additionally, reminders by text message are automatically generated to individuals who have registered for any of our series. A sixth technique that we use is social proofing. Online posts and events with large numbers of likes and views and comments attract attention and gain momentum. In fact, social media algorithms actually place content in front of viewers based on proven interest. And this is why sharing, liking, and commenting are so important to the success of an online event. Can you see how we need more digital evangelists to be engaging with this online content? At times, another technique that we use with social proofing is to boost sessions to emerging international markets as a method of increasing views. And the interest generated in these international markets actually lowers the cost in our home market as well. So that's another technique that we use. The seventh technique that I want to share with you is that we also have a partnership with an interest tracking platform called Disciples. And this enables local churches to receive the names of interests seamlessly into their Disciples account. An organized interest list, we found, provides the best opportunity for effective follow-up. And now I've personally hosted a free online training course about how to use this powerful tool called Disciples. And you can find that training by visiting the website maxharvestchurch.com/disciples. So in closing, I want to encourage you to pray about becoming a digital evangelist. What would that look like for you? What doors could this open for your ministry and for your church if you became a digital evangelist and encouraged others to do the same? If this is something that you're interested in, I want to encourage you to like our Facebook page so that you can stay tuned about our upcoming online series. And as always, feel free to reach out to our team as well so that we can work together on helping you to become an effective digital evangelist. I hope that this presentation was a blessing to you, and I look forward to being in touch soon. God bless.
And welcome back. We are glad that you are here, and we are here live with Tim Taylor. Tim, thanks for being with us. He was the one who did our presentation, and now we get to ask some questions. If you have any questions while we are dialoguing, feel free to put them into the chat. Tim was just talking about chat engagement and various things. So if you're watching and you have access to the chat, go ahead. If you have a question that comes up, write it in. We will try to get to it as well. But I have a few questions for you
Sure.
after watching that presentation. You know, when we talk about involvement and witnessing and sharing, a lot of times we think about what's the purpose? Why are we doing this? What is our motivation? So how do we negotiate that fine line between building relationships with people, to build relationships with people, authentic relationships from friendships, versus building relationships with the end goal of converting someone? So my only purpose in building a relationship with you is to convert you into the church. So, and I'm only doing this, and it's an inauthentic relationship. So how do we negotiate that fine line, especially on a digital platform?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I would say that this is something that's important for us to keep in mind, both with digital evangelism and really with any other kind of evangelism as well. And that is to make sure that we are being reflective and to check our motives, for reaching out to people. And of course, following Christ's method alone is as that quote, shares, is really the goal. And I feel like, Jesus gives us that balanced example where on one hand, we do need to be careful not to be having selfish motives when we're doing evangelism of wanting our church to grow, to be bigger, or wanting to look better, or, wanting to, like you're saying, convert people into to our way of thinking and that kind of a thing. We have to be careful with our motives, but at the same time, if you look at the example of Jesus, he did invite people to follow him.
Right.
And so I think that requires boldness and that requires courage. But I would say something that's been helpful for me is to always remember to consider what is in their best interest, And so it's not about inviting people to do what I want them to do, but it's really about having that belief that it's all about Jesus and that Jesus is what's best for them. And so we invite them into a relationship with Jesus because we care about them and want what's best for them, not just what's best for us.
Right. Yeah. I've always termed it in this way, is like, I just want to be friends with people, and I just want Jesus to use me in reaching out to people. And there are times where I sense the Spirit calling me to ask someone a pointed question or a specific question, but a lot of times it's just we work together, we talk, things come up, and there are times when I invite them to something that calls them to something deeper. It's definitely a fine line.
Yes, it is.
And it can be hard to negotiate at times. So there are many people who are watching today who may be watching on YouTube or Facebook, and that may be the only digital platforms that they know about or to have engaged on. Are there other digital platforms that people have successfully used and engaged on? And if there are, do you know of any that people have used?
Yes, absolutely. When we talk about digital evangelism, there are a lot of different avenues to have a digital impact and influence towards other people. And so, we've mainly focused on Facebook because, for a number of reasons, it's a very large platform. It has a lot of engagement opportunities, which we're looking for. But there are, as you said, other platforms as well, and we certainly encourage that too. Instagram, there's TikTok that's becoming more and more popular, and I know we even have some pastors here that are having a lot of success doing digital evangelism using those kind of platforms as well. So we're definitely supportive of those types of digital evangelism initiatives too. And even though we're kind of honing in, focusing on Facebook because we found a lot of success there, there are other platforms too that we certainly want to acknowledge.
I mean, Facebook has, I was just looking it up, 2.7 active monthly users. With 2.7 billion active monthly users. I got to get that billion in there. There's a lot of people utilizing Facebook.
Yes.
So yeah, it's there are multiple platforms, but you guys have honing in on Facebook. But yeah, as you said, I know of several pastors who have been successful on TikTok and other platforms and Instagram and the like. Yeah.
So we're certainly not trying to say that this is the only way to do things. We're just saying this is one way that we've found some success. And one of the reasons that we've chosen Facebook is because it's they have a really thorough ecosystem. Everything from the advertisement to which is how we initially reach people, is through advertisement on Facebook, and of course that goes through Instagram as well because they're connected. And then people find out about the meetings, they can register for them. We can have an event page for it on Facebook, and then we can actually stream the content on Facebook. People can engage in the comments, and even messaging follow up can happen as well. And so from start to finish, it kind of provides a nice package for us to really make a big impact.
So I know that a lot of younger people are moving away from Facebook a little bit. So how do you find like, is there a specific age range that you're focusing on with Facebook, or is it kind of broad, or and then what is that? And I know we're getting into the little nitty-gritty details of Facebook targeting and stuff, but is there like an age range that you're targeting with Facebook? And if so, how are you evaluating success in that way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, there is a certain demographic that we target, and like you said, there are certain demographics that are moving to other platforms, and so we're of course targeting the platform and the demographic that seems to be the most successful using Facebook. But again, that is to say that there are other demographics out there as well that need to be reached too, and so we encourage innovation using these other platforms as well to reach other demographic audiences too. But yeah, there is a lot of targeting that you can do using Facebook advertisement to choose specific interests or specific age groups, and that is something that we look at.
Right, yeah. So you mentioned quality content as one of your top, really at the beginning. How would you, other than your Max Life events content that is very well done, how would someone also go around and finding other quality content that they could share with people in their social network?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, obviously we're doing our best to do our part to provide content for people to have available to them. And we found that finding content that is secular friendly can be very challenging. And so that's one of the gaps that we identified that we wanted to fill. And so our content that we provide is very intentional to be secular friendly, as I mentioned earlier, where we don't have a lot of church language, and this even stretches our presenters sometimes, who are more used to talking to a church audience, where we coach them beforehand to help them to understand to use language that is more, secular friendly. For example, instead of diving into the Garden of Gethsemane, people might not know what that is, that kind of a thing. And so we are really excited about the opportunity to provide this type of content that allows people to have confidence in sharing with their networks, to know that this is content that is not going to be really off-putting in terms of very highly religious from the get-go. We do, of course, lead into talking about Jesus and the Bible and that kind of a thing, but we try to be very careful and respectful about how we do that, so that way people don't feel that we're not being sensitive to where they're at spiritually. So like I said, we're trying to do our part to provide that content. In terms of other ways to find other resources, that's a great question. We're always looking for other resources that are out there and partnering with other organizations. Of course, we're partnering with It Is Written, as you know, and also working with some individuals at the General Conference that are working to also identify more content as well. So.
Right. So So while your recording was going on, we were chatting a little bit about some things, and someone else brought this up about, is this only about evangelistic meetings? So we kind of had this discussion about the presentation was pushing people towards the Max Life meetings because you have a lot of content there. But is there other ways in which people can be a digital evangelist outside of the Max Life Harvest or connecting to evangelistic meetings that are happening online? What would you recommend for people in situations like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many different opportunities to be a digital evangelist in the day and age that we live in. Mm-hmm. And so engaging with our platform, Max Life Events, is one of those, but there are many other ways to do that. And it reminds me of what someone said earlier. I'm trying to remember if it was somebody from our team or maybe it was John Bradshaw. I can't remember, but the concept of, do people only know that you're a Christian from your Facebook profile?
Right.
And so I believe it's important to use our sphere of influence digitally to share Christ, to share Jesus with others. So whether that might mean just being a witness in your daily life, sharing maybe an inspirational quote here and there, or a story about how God is working in your life, or a testimony. People love testimonies and stories, right? And so that's a great way to just say, hey, I've been so blessed in my life that this has happened. And even using some of that type of language can be a conversation starter for other people to say, hey, I noticed you share that story, and tell me more about that.
Yeah.
And I found, I even have a whole sermon on this, but the whole idea of giving God glory even in through trials that we go through.
Yeah.
And social media sometimes glamorizes, parts of our lives, or you only see the highlights. But I think there's also value in sometimes sharing some of the challenges and the struggles that we're going through, and how God is helping us through that, even in the eye of the storm. And so that's another way you can be a witness digitally.
I really like how you mentioned that story aspect, because one of the things that I haven't said it this way, but it's the way I think about stories are kind of the food that bring people together. People are drawn in I'm always drawn into a story. When someone starts telling a story, I'm like, okay, let me sit and listen.
Right.
Stories are just impactful in that way. And I think many people enjoy reading stories on Facebook. And you can't really do a story on Twitter because you're limited so much to things, but you can do stories in various other ways, and stories really bring us together. So I'm glad that you mentioned that stories aspect. So, we share something online via Facebook or Twitter or whatever digital platform that we're in. We share something online, and then people start commenting. And how do we engage then? What would you recommend? Do we just let the comments sit there, or do we engage there? How would you best encourage people to engage in that way?
Yeah, the nice thing about social media is it gives you different ways to engage with people. So, whether that's on a post that you make and people might comment there and you can engage in those comments, or whether it may be someone else that posts maybe a difficult time they're going through in their life, and you can reach out in the comments there on their posts. You can also use direct messages as well as a way to take things in a little bit more of an intimate context. And so we're always looking at different ways to engage with people online. And for example, one of the things that we did that I don't think I shared in my presentation is that we've also been launching a Zoom small group kind of interaction. Yeah. We're calling it Thrive Now, and it's a weekly group that we have, and we've invited everybody who's been engaging with us through the digital meetings to join us for the Zoom sessions. And we found that's been a great way to get to know people in a more of an intimate setting. And we even have breakout rooms and that kind of a thing. And so the reason that I share this is because there are different levels of engaging with somebody. Comments in a public way is a bit more of a neutral kind of a way to get started. But as you start to connect with people, maybe in the comments, you can then take it to the next level, maybe sending them a direct message and taking things more personal that way.
Yeah, I really like how you brought up the Zoom meeting, because there's so many more platforms now. Coming out of COVID, there's so many companies that Zoom was the big thing, but then Google Meet, and then there's also Microsoft Teams, and there's all these other different places, Facebook Hangouts, where a group of individuals can get together and have an online discussion that is not as good as in person, but it is definitely a more intimate and more conversation-friendly atmosphere.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we've been enjoying the opportunity to get to know people on a deeper level through some of these other avenues too. We recommend that.
Right. All right. So, one of the things that I found when I on Facebook or YouTube is engaging in the comment section on my posts has been rewarding at times and frustrating at other times, depending on the content and what's being, given back to me. I think we've all experienced something like that, and I have found immense blessing in engagement, though, and not just posting something and then just letting it be. And I think I would recommend people engage with people who are engaging with your post, especially if it's a positive engagement, because it's a good way to share with people more about what you were thinking and what you were feeling, and then have more opportunities to get to know more people better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right. So you mentioned a church doing a digital evangelism team. If you have a church that has an online presence and has some people wanting to engage in that way, what if you're a member in a church and they don't have all of that available? They don't have the budget to develop this team, or they don't have a lot of people, but you have this passion for being a digital evangelist for your church. How would you go about talking with people, garnering some support? How would you start out if you're in that situation?
Yeah, that's a great question, because we do get that feedback sometimes is, some churches are interested in doing digital evangelism, but maybe the congregation might be, aging, and there's not as much of a base of members
Right.
to really
Yeah.
tap into something like that. And what I would say is that all it takes is one person, to get involved. And that's why I love the story of the Cascade Seventh-day Adventist Church, which we actually have a video about too. But they just identified one person, that really was, into social media and was really, engaged that way. And there were other individuals that expressed an interest too, but there was one person that really just dove right in. And that's all it takes, for a church to begin to have a connection and an impact digitally.
Right.
Is just one member. Of course, it's best to have a team, and that can happen over time sometimes. But I would say that if there's somebody who has a passion for digital evangelism and wants to develop a team, I would say don't wait until you don't have to wait until you have a whole team. That's the best case scenario, but you can get started right away on your own.
Right.
And sometimes people will come along with you as they see God working through your ministry and jump on the bandwagon, kind of a thing.
All right, so let's take a look at this video that you have queued up on the Cascade Church.
The Cascade
Yeah. So
Seventh-day Adventist
let's
Church.
roll it.
Okay.
So the Cascade Church was challenged by COVID-19 in several ways. We had to cancel much of our programming that was related to evangelism, because most of what we had planned was dealing with group size activities. So we ended up meeting at the church every morning at 5:30 for 10 days and seeking the Lord in prayer. At the end of those 10 days, ironically on our schedule, was when Rob Zama was going to be at our church with Tom Evans, and they were presenting on Max Life.
Max Life Events is a secular-friendly digital platform that helps people to live their lives with greater intentionality. The platform allows us to hold online meetings and allows us to give these opportunities for local churches to engage as well and to reach their communities digitally.
As soon as that presentation was over, our evangelism team wanted to meet with them. They were just so excited. Figured this was the way we needed to go. Became apparent right away as we were discussing around our prayer meeting table that Loretta was gifted in the Facebook arena. And so she just got right in there on the first scheduled event that we advertised in the church.
As Loretta was engaging in the comments with people, she began to get to know them, and one of the individuals she got to know was a lady that turned out lives right in her area. And so they began connecting more and more and became some pretty good friends. And it's been neat to see this online connection go offline and for the transition to take place from digital evangelism to the local church ministry as well. She was not only being a blessing to the people who were engaging in the comments, but she was also receiving a spiritual blessing herself. We offer appeals for baptism during the meetings that we have, and Loretta responded and said that she is interested in being rebaptized. We're excited to continue to support this church as they continue to do evangelism, not just online, but also in person as well.
Digital evangelism gave us an opportunity to feel like we could do something even though we couldn't be face to face with people.
I would love to see more stories like this one taking place all over our conference territory. Stories of people who sense a passion and a calling to use their digital influence to show God's care and love to others. Right now, our team is committed to holding at least 4 digital series online every year because we are passionate about continuing to give church members across our conference opportunities like this to become digital evangelists. And in order to do this, funding is crucial. Effective social media advertising alone can cost thousands of dollars per series. And so I would like to invite you to make a difference right now by partnering with us financially to allow our team to continue to provide opportunities like this to churches throughout the conference territory. Thank you in advance for your generosity, and I'm looking forward to continuing this journey together with you over this next year.
So if people want to give, they can just they can give at the website, or they can give through online giving.
Yes.
Okay. All right. It was really neat to see a church utilize digital evangelism and to see the engagement that happened. And it's really important to take a digital contact and create a face-to-face contact.
Yes.
So we saw that happen with that one lady.
Yes.
Explain that process for us a little bit.
Yes, I love that you asked that question because this is something we're very passionate about. Sometimes when people think about digital evangelism, they think only online, but we see digital evangelism as one piece to a bigger picture and as just one avenue to really reach out to people and to plug that into local church ministry. And so we're very intentional about that. So yes, we have these different connections that take place online through the comments and the chat and messages and maybe Zoom and this kind of a thing. But we also do partnering with local churches, and it's similar to how other ministries do it, where we encourage local representatives, and so that's how we introduce a local church to contacts that we have online, where we'd say, hey, we actually have a local Max Life events representative in your area that could connect you with resources and tools and a community that could really be a game changer for you. And we've had quite a few of those conversations online with people. And I have to tell you, there hasn't been a single person that has objected to that. Everybody has been so excited because at that point they're connected, they see the value of what we're doing, and they've been blessed through the content that we've been providing, and they're starting to already experience an online community, and people typically want more of that. And so to find out that, there's actually somebody in my area that I could connect with is exciting to people. Right. The only objection I've had is somebody said, well, is that going to cost money? I said, no, it's free, completely free for us to connect you with the community in your area. And so, of course, that's what we encourage. And we love to see those connections taking place where people, meet in person after connecting online.
So one of the challenges, benefits and challenge, is the ability to make contacts with people, not just in your local area, but around the world. We have people watching today and watching our various events here at Oregon Conference Camp Meeting, that not just in the Oregon territory, but in various areas of the world. So how do you create meaningful relationships with someone who may be in a different country than you are? Like you're here in Oregon and you're being a digital evangelist and you're sharing stuff, and all of a sudden you make a contact through one of these Max Life events of someone who's in England or Africa, somewhere in Africa, in Tanzania or something. And how do you develop that kind of relationship?
Yeah, so that is one of the amazing things with digital evangelism, is the amount of influence and impact you can have, and we certainly encourage that. So obviously our main focus is here in the Oregon Conference territory, but with digital evangelism we're finding that this initiative has had a broad impact, and for example, my wife connected with a young lady from Kenya, and now they're doing some coaching and that kind of a thing. And another story is we were plugging away, with our meetings and everything, and we got a text message from a friend of ours that showed some pictures of a young lady who was made a decision for baptism through the digital platforms that we were doing, and in the Michigan area. And so a pastor friend of mine actually ended up baptizing her into their local community in the Michigan conference, and that journey started with our platform. And they even had a Max Life Events jacket on, the day of her baptism. And so and so it's really neat to see the kind of impact that you can have. So yes, we're focused on this territory, but we're also open to God's leading outside of the territory as well, and we encourage that too.
Right, and being focused on being friendly to secular people not inside the Adventist church. You have to be careful about the insider language that you use, because we have our inside. You mentioned in the presentation the insider language that we have, like Sabbath and Spirit of Prophecy, and I shared it with you a couple other ones. So what are some best practices to help us as we share stuff or as we type stories out? How can we best kind of filter our own insider language to be more friendly to people who may not understand what we're meaning?
Yeah, it's easy for us to become well insulated is a term that I've heard used before, where we're around believers, we're around like-minded people, and we end up even in an echo chamber sometimes. And it is important when doing evangelism of any kind, whether it's online or offline, to remember that there are other worldviews, there are other contexts that people are coming from, and to keep that in mind, and remembering that the lingo, like you're saying, that we maybe were raised with or have become immersed in, is not something that everybody is familiar with, and to keep that in mind as we have those interactions, and putting ourselves in their shoes and saying, okay, if I didn't know anything about the Sabbath, how would I want to be treated? How would I want to hear about this type of an opportunity? And so that's what we're encouraging, and that can stretch a lot of people who maybe don't have a lot of non-believer friends or secular-minded friends to really know how to engage. And I would say the best way to get started is to go for it. You have to start somewhere, and starting to engage with people that may not believe everything you believe. It's a great way to start having those conversations and learning how to engage in a meaningful way.
I think one of the best ways that I've been able to engage in people who are not like me is participating in various Facebook groups, because the Facebook algorithm puts you somewhat in an echo chamber depending on who you interact with. And so you see people that you interact with the most, and so it can feel like an echo chamber. And I think the way that I have found to get out of that at times is to engage in different Facebook groups that I have interests in. And I've made a friend because of that. I've made several friends because of that, engaging in these different groups and being able to meet them outside of Facebook and in person and create friendships with them.
Absolutely.
And, that would be a tip that I would share with people. Is that,
that's a great idea.
Look at your Facebook groups and begin engaging with people there, because you're really only going to engage with your own friends if you're just looking at your Facebook feed. But if you're in groups or forums, if you have any forums of things that you're in, you can engage there as well. And
it can always help to have a common interest with somebody. And the idea you shared, I love that idea, because groups are often around a common interest of some sort, and it can help to have that as a conversation starter, and to see where the conversation goes and how God blesses with that.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of texting, you mentioned texting at the end. I have found that as I have engaged with young adults and youth, a lot of them have been moving away from Facebook and more towards like texting groups, which can be hard to get into in a sense. But you can. I have been reading about engaging in texting groups and creating these groups on like WhatsApp or Signal or Telegram. Maybe can you explain some more of that to us in regards to have you had any success in that, or talked about that, or just looked into that at all?
Yeah, I would say that our texting platform is one of the biggest successes that we've had. And it allows us to send a lot of text messages, but in a personalized way, so it's really helpful. And it allows us to set up automations as well. And so one of my favorite stories is we were using our text message platform to notify everybody who signed up for one of our series that we were going live, and we do that every night of our meetings. And so I don't remember exactly what night we were in, what number, but it was well into one of our series. And one of the things I like about our platform is it allows for two-way interactions. And so we can send out a mass text message, but that's usually the starting point of a conversation that we'll have with somebody.
Yeah.
And so that's what happened with this instance, where we sent out this reminder that we're going live, and one of the ladies that had been tuning in regularly, she messaged back on text message and said, I wish I could be present, but I'm actually in the ER right now with my son.
Wow.
My son, there was a tragic accident, and he's about to go into surgery, I believe it was. And she said, please pray for him. And so we got that text message in the middle of our meeting, after we had already started.
Right.
But we have a setup in our studio where we're able to communicate with the presenter, and we let them know about the prayer request, and we were able to pray for that person right then and there while they were in the ER. We had a special prayer for them.
Wow.
And we were able to text back and let them know we just prayed for you, and that was so meaningful for them. And they ended up returning back to watch the presentations as soon as they were able to in future nights. So it's just another way of building those meaningful connections with people.
Right. So you have access to a texting platform where people can sign up, and it's kind of like an email. What's the word I'm looking for? Where people can sign up, and then they will get messages, newsletter type thing.
Sure.
Yeah. So what about someone who doesn't have access to that kind of texting platform? How would you recommend that they use texting as a way to be a digital evangelist?
Yeah, so of course everybody has a cell phone these days, right? And that's really all you need to engage in text messaging, as long as, of course, you have someone's phone number.
Right.
So again, a practical way of doing that is if you have guests that come to your church, maybe signing a guest book, or as you get to know them, exchanging phone numbers, and just shooting them a text and just let them know, hey, it was so nice to meet you today. Looking forward to seeing you, and you can invite them to upcoming, events that might be happening at your church. And so there are all sorts of ways that you can use text messages to engage with people. And it is a very personal, very easy way to engage, not only for you, but for the other person too.
Right. Yeah. Because a lot of people don't like talking on the phones anymore. They prefer to text.
Yes, exactly. It seems to be more and more common where, I call somebody and their voicemail just says, if you want to reach me, text me.
Yeah, right.
So.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you, Tim, for joining us today. Thank you for your presentation on how to be a digital evangelist. I know there's a lot more that we could discuss, and there's a lot more, go significantly deeper in this, but thank you for being here. Thank you all for being here as well. We're glad that you had this opportunity to join us on this discussion, this presentation. There is more for the rest of this day, presentations. You can download the Socio app, go to the Oregon Conference website, and find a schedule and find out what all is going on. Thank you for participating with us today. We hope you have a great rest of your Friday afternoon.